Welcome into Floyd Street's Finest. He is former Louisville assistant coach Mark Lieberman. I am Jack Grossman. Thanks so much for tuning in. Floyd Street's Finest, part of the Field of 68 podcast network. Like, subscribe, follow on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however the heck you're consuming this. We appreciate all of it. He's on Twitter at Coach Lieberman. I'm on Twitter at Jack Grossman97. Also Blue Sky at Jack Grossman as well. Coach, you've been busy lately. I know you were on with Ennis today, maybe in Rummage. You got the Coaches Corner going on at ESPN Louisville Plus, but always love the time to make it out here to talk some Louisville hoops as well after the exhibition games.
Always enjoy talking with you, Jack. I kind of look like I'm in a witness protection program with the hat kind of low, but it's been a long day. Talked a bit, but couldn't wait to get on with you, buddy.
Pleasure is all mine. Gonna have a blast for sure. So I know you've gotten your chances. You look at the Coach's Corner. I got actually a couple notes on a couple of the plays from there as well that I want to hit on from the Kansas game. But for me, first of all, for full disclosure, I had a wedding last weekend in Michigan, and the bar I was at after the rehearsal dinner did not let me put the game on the ACC network, which I was not thrilled with. So I was a little.
It's wedding season. You gotta be careful.
Oh, fantastic time with the wedding, but I was like, come on, let me throw it on the background. I want to see what the hell's going on. But
on the phone, little phone. You couldn't.
I had a little phone action, but like I'm trying to,
You want to see the big screen.
I want to see it on the big screen, and also
Gotcha.
I'm trying not to completely isolate myself. I am trying to be social at the wedding. Contrary to
I understand. Makes sense, Jack. You should. Maybe you'll meet the future Mrs. Grossman. Who knows?
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. But it was a real fun weekend out there.
Good.
But I have since gotten a chance to catch up, watch the Kansas game, the Bucknell game. I want to hit some stuff on the Kansas game to start off with, Coach. Just looking at it, I found it to be a fascinating matchup. I know Phil Baker and I last week talked a lot about it. I thought Louisville would be able to have an edge on the defensive end because Kansas doesn't have a lot of shooting. They're very athletic, not a lot of shooting, though. What we saw was Darren Peterson happened, especially in that first half. He was incredible in that game at 24 points, showed why, he's the first or second rated recruit in the country. So what did you see? Because Louisville made some adjustments in the second half that opened up some other things. But early on in the game, other than obviously Peterson just hitting some really tough shots in the mix of it as well, how was Kansas able to attack Louisville and build that lead out early?
Yeah, there were some tough ones, but there was late reactions, late recoveries. Sometimes were more pointing than recovering and closing out and so on. And he did a good job of running the floor. He navigated ball screens. But again, at this time of the year, when you don't have film and you're basically going on tendencies and what players like to do, and you don't really have, okay, this is how they're going to run it. This is how they're going to get him open. They're going to run him off of a pin down, or he's going to come off of a dribble handoff or whatnot. You look at his shots. I mean, he hit some tough ones, but yeah, he got some in transition. He came off of, just some catch and shoots where guys were a little bit late for the recovery because that's what's going to happen at this time of the year. And he's a special player. That's why he's going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft, is because he's that good. He's long and he can get a shot off, and it's a quick, he's got a low base and he can get to the rim, and those are the type of things that are going to happen. I mean, and to get in October, to play a game like that in October with I know with the fans, and they're disappointed that they didn't win or they didn't look a certain way. This is great to get your team to play a game like that against a team like that. It pays dividends, and that's what you want. And so, Coach Kelsey even came out and said, yeah, it was great for us. Obviously, we want to win. Of course they want to win. They don't treat these games like preseason. These are games. They're going to run their stuff. We didn't see a lot of their actions. We didn't see a lot of their plays, but you saw them run defensively, seeing them extend their pressure, seeing how they're guarding ball screens, really hedging out, blitzing. But for the most part, Peterson's a problem for everybody. He's going to be fantastic this year. And I think Kansas is going to be sneaky good.
Yeah, I thought they looked really impressive on Friday. Peterson, obviously, Flory Badunga and Tiller had really big games as well. Former Louisville forward Trey White had some nice moments. They got a lot of athleticism. They're going to be a really tough out in the Big 12.
Oh yeah, and look, they ran some open side ball screens. they got into their offense. You saw them; they weren't stagnant. You could see that they still they didn't play a lot of 4 round 1, but they got into some, to start the second half when they got the switch with McNeely and Frew, where they were able to isolate it and really lift up their wings and really where you can't help. But look, that's what Kansas does. They Coach Self is a Hall of Famer for a reason, and they run good stuff and they look good. And Louisville did not look bad. Obviously people are want to see perfection at this time of the year, but there's so many good things that this team did that impressed me. That's only going to carry them forward. Effort wise, I thought they were on point.
Right. I'm happy you brought up the play where Fruga kind of caught out on a switch. I know you broke this down on the coach's corner, but I kind of wanted to hit on it as well, which you can find that over on ESPN Louisville Plus. It was the first offensive possession of the second half, I
It
believe.
sure was.
Yep. Flory was able to get a hard dive through hedges. Louisville made the adjustment of we're going to blitz and really high hedge these ball screens with Darren Peterson. We don't want him getting
Right.
downhill, beating us. But really what you saw, as you said, open side ball screens. I thought Louisville in the second half especially really, really struggled with. And I know there's been a lot of, I guess, angst is the best way of putting it around the front court with Frew and Zugris,
Mm-hmm.
especially with Kansas and Bucknell. But really, what I saw is yes, Flory and Tiller had I think 19 points between the two in that second half. But a lot of it wasn't as much on them. Yes, I think Frew especially could have done a better job of committing more to the blitz, to the hedge, and slowing Peterson down a little bit more. But I really saw, like, I counted, I think, 4 or 5 times where either Flory or Tiller would crash hard after setting the screen, and the tag just either didn't get there or got there too late. And when you're looking at pick and roll defense, it would really, honestly, one of the things that made Louisville so good last year was that Hadley and Edwards and all these guys were so good with their rotations. We didn't see that as much in the Kansas game or even the Bucknell game as well, to where it looked like McNeely was late to tag on the play where Flory scored to start the second
Mm-hmm.
half. There was a blob where just Conwell falls asleep and White just darts to the bucket and gets an easy lob. Tiller beat Zugris on a late closeout to the corner off of a high ball screen. There was just a lot of not good help side defense from Louisville in that game against Kansas, to where I think a lot of it was I do think the bigs do need to be better. I thought Ali Khalifa gave them some really good minutes, especially in the first half, to kind of get them settled in after Kansas had the 7-0 start. But I think a lot of it also is just they weren't getting the help on the back end to rotate the way they need to if you're going to blitz and hard hedge these screens the way they decided to after halftime.
Well, they hadn't seen that type of speed and that type of. They're going to go against each other in practice, but it's a different animal when you're playing a team like Kansas. I think a lot of it too was some dribble penetration where the bigs were helping up, and there were some lobs to the bigs where it all goes hand in hand. When you can't have blow bys, you can't have guys getting paint touches, and then all of a sudden the defender helps up, and the bigs will do that. And sometimes they weren't stunting, and it was just a help position, and there's a lob. So all those things are correctable though, because I don't think there was times where, yeah, maybe 1 or 2 instances were a bit late and lazy, but for the most part, understanding how to be connected and understanding all those type of things as far as plugging the roll, chipping him, making sure the ball pressure is on point. Even on that play where McNeely switches on and Frew's on the perimeter, and Hadley's a little bit late with his ball pressure on Trey White. So sometimes, and I mentioned that in the clip, that you can buy your teammate half a second with ball pressure. And when you have a with Chucky Hepburn last year, who just absolutely refused to be screened, or just defeated every screen he was in the ball screen, where he would just go, he'd bust his ass over, he'd get himself under, he wouldn't get beat on those type of things and keep you out of the paint and catch those moves. Where this group doesn't really have that. But on the flip side, I think they're going to get much better defensively, and they're going to understand how to be connected. But from an offensive standpoint, you're talking about a bunch of guys that can get to the rim, that can shoot it. And that's the difference, where last year they really had to manufacture so many things in the half court, where this year's group is going to get out and go.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that their defense is going to help them out a lot with as well. I mean, we saw in the Bucknell game, especially, where I thought early on that game, the offense was a little herky jerky, which again, makes sense when there's a lot of new pieces. You're trying to fit everyone together and you're in the half court. But once they started getting some stops, getting down in transition, that's where things really opened up. You get 23 threes. I think Louisville's going to be fine on the offensive end. Even in the Kansas game, I think they were 11 to 38 from
They were
distance.
11 for
Yeah.
38 in that game. Yep. And then obviously this game, they would have set a record for threes. But again, it's a matter of this is how the team wants to play. And Jack, you notice they extended their pressure in both games, which I think you're going to see more of because there's a few things. They want to control pace. They want to get you sped up. They want you to play at their style, which is getting up and down and taking time off that clock anyway. So then you're taking bad shots. They can rebound and get out and go, and that's going to be a factor for them. And another thing to point out, this team is going to shoot 30 to 43s a game. They are. That's what I think their makeup is. And I think you look at Kansas, of course, they went 11 for 38, but they had 21 offensive rebounds. And they had 9 offensive rebounds against Bucknell, and they shot at a high clip. This team is going to do a very good job, no matter how much you preach it as a coach and having been there. And as a coach, when the team shoots threes, Jack, you say long shots, long rebounds, and you go over that. But no matter what, if you watch this game, and I watched both games and went through the defensive technique on 3-point shots, you saw the defender step in. And when you do that, you've got to be trained and disciplined and meticulous where you step out, you hit a guy, so those rebounds come to you. This team with their athleticism is going to get to a ton of offensive rebounds.
Even with how, like we knew this team was going to shoot a lot of threes going into the year. They shot 38 against Kansas. It still is a little jarring to see them in the Bucknell game take 35 field goal attempts in the first half and 29 of them are threes. Like, I don't know how often we'll see that level of extremism. Like, we know they're going to shoot the three ball a ton, but man, just take 6 2-point field goals and a half. That's some crazy work.
I think you're going to see a more almost NBA analytical approach to it because they're going to get back cuts, they're going to get layups, dunks, and threes. I think that's what you're going to see a lot out of this team. Where Chucky even lived the mid range, and you had Fat Edwards being able to post up in the mid range area as well. Where I think this group is going to play off their zooms, play off their back cuts, and you've got to decide and pick your poison. Are you going to try and blow up a play and overplay where you have guys like Pryor and obviously Khalifa who can make that type of pass, or are you going to just try and go under at times where they hit shots even in the Kansas game where 1 second either you have a little misdirection where there's a handoff and you watch Conwell just go over the flare and Frew re-angles his screen, takes the defender out, and there's an open three. So there's different things. You can't be late and lazy defending this Louisville team because they're either going to beat you with back cuts, they're going to beat you with the zooms with the threes, or they're just going to beat you up the court for open shots as well.
Yeah, that's one thing to kind of stress is I know there's been just calls on the Twitters, the radio shows, all that say, why don't they post up ever? I'm like, that's not what that is according to analytics, one of the lowest percentage things you can do on a basketball court is a post up.
Right. Unless you're Houston, unless you're playing for Kelvin Sampson.
No. I mean, there's
Jack,
exceptions to every rule. Like, if
of course, Jack, this is the way they want to play, and it works. Yeah.
But if you have a dude like a Francis from Houston last year, or like a David Padgett or Gorgie Jaggy or Shane Behan, you can play through the post. But
or Zach Edey,
Zach Edey, absolutely.
You're going to do that. That's not what this team is.
No, that's not what they're built to do. So why would you want them to do something that they're not built to do? Mm-hmm. They're going to do what they do best, and that's playing with pace, shooting the three ball, and trying to beat you one-on-one, and using as they get in and they start using more of the sets and stuff that Pal Kelsey likes, be able to scheme up some open shots as well.
Right. It's exactly it. And you're going to recruit those type of players. And I think, again, people are, as you said, poo-pooing some of the post play. But what they want is their post to defend, obviously we saw that maybe with Case and Pryor, depending on how healthy he comes back. And with Ruths as well, those are guys that probably can switch out at times, especially depending on what the clock's at. But this is a team that you could see made a concerted effort to hedge or hard hedge or blitz some ball screens and recover and have activity and really work on it. And if it didn't work great, that's okay because we want to get better at it against a really good team. And then defensively extend their pressure. But when you have McNeely, when you have Conwell, when you have Mikael Brown, when you have Hadley, and you have Woolley, and you have these guys that can stretch you and run and hit threes. I mean, my gosh, like that's the style of play. You want your bigs to be great screeners, to be great defenders, to get into dribble handoffs, to set great ball screens, to sprint to the rim on those things. If they're going to occupy for the lift, for the throwback for a three, they're going to understand what their role is. And it's not going to be where Patrick Ewing is, where you're just going to throw the ball and expect him to score 25 points and have jump hooks. That's not what this team is built to do.
Yeah, and you look at it, I mean, I love that you brought up them extending pressure because I think that's a great thing for them to be doing, especially with one, like you said, trying to increase the pace, and two, because you're not always pressing for turnovers. Louisville fans know this as well as anyone because of watching Rick Pitino style pressure and Denny Crum before that for 40, 50 years. But you're pressing not just to get turnovers, but also to try to either speed the game up, slow it down to try to keep them from getting out in transition and get an easy bucket. I mean, that's why I think you see in the NBA, even earlier this season, you're seeing pressing become more and more frequent on the
Right.
highest level because they're
Yeah.
trying to slow the game down on their end. You can try to speed the game up, make guys uncomfortable. And also, when you're playing 10, 11, 12 guys, you're trying to wear the other team out too by making them have to be focused and using energy and mental capability for a full 94 feet for 40 minutes. So I love the fact they're extending their pressure. I think that's something that's going to be really useful for them throughout the year. We saw a lot, mostly full court man. We did see, I want to ask you about this because we saw in the Kansas game in the first half, they went 1-2-1-1, which personally I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine that probably is entertaining only for myself. I'm going to entertain myself here for a second. If you remember, Coach, did you ever play any of the old college basketball video games?
Sorry, Jack, I'm going to have to leave this year on the island here as I was not a big video game guy.
Fair. Well, first of all, I'm still so crushed that EA Sports has pulled out of making the college basketball video game because schools decided to take a short-term pay cut from 2K, but I'm not going down that rabbit hole right now. But long story short, growing up, you would play with Louisville on it, or at least I would. And I was very like, I wanted everything to be as real as it could be, like trying to coach and play the game like how Louisville would play. So with UofL back then, it would be trying to press with, Edgar Sosa and Terrence Williams and Jerry Smith and Preston Knowles and all these guys. But I never did the 2-2-1 on it because there wasn't enough trapping for me. I wanted to trap. So I always did a 1-2-1-1.
Mm-hmm.
So to see Louisville do the 1-2-1-1 brought a little, just little nostalgic taste for me on that. But the long tangent goes to they almost got a steal out of it. I think it was Hadley jumped a pass, tipped it, didn't fully get it. Kansas got a 2-on-1, ended up getting the bucket. But I love they're doing it. But I just want to ask you, with a 1-2-1-1, what are you trying to accomplish with that specific press?
Well, and they did it a couple times against Bucknell as well. And they used it out of a timeout. They used it. Those are type of things where all of a sudden you can just get where teams are just lax. They get the ball in, not expecting a quick trap, and all of a sudden you get a deflection with their length and their athleticism on with wings and guards. It's a type of situation where you're probably not going to get beat deep, where the initial pass is going to go right back to the inbounder. A lot of teams have their inbounder being a guard or a four. Not a point guard sometimes. And I should have just said a four-man. But, especially off a timeout. And if you can maybe cause their team to call a quick timeout, or you might just get a quick trap. And as you mentioned, it's causing tempo. And you might not be getting a steal, but you're causing this team to think, okay, what are they in? Are they falling back to a zone? Are they falling back to man? Anytime you're getting a team to worry about what you're doing instead of what they're running is what the purpose of what you're trying to do defensively. So even if they don't initiate and get a steal off of it, they're creating time off the clock. They're making you worry about you instead of what they're going to run. And are they crossing half court? Are they coming to trap right away? Are they staying in the zone? Are staying in the man? And all of a sudden, that's what you want teams to do. It's confusing. And look, the essence of the game is deception. If you can do that at times off a timeout, it's great.
Yeah, or off a made free throw as well, which we saw Louisville do a couple
no
times too. And I love that, it's kind of like giving you, okay, we're trying to force you to the corner. Force you to the corner. That's get those extra invisible defenders at the baseline and the sideline as well, which I think that specific type of a trapping press is a really smart way to do that.
And you saw, look, you can get back tips. You saw even even when they weren't, they were just in their full court man. And Kobe Rogers was able to, you never beat, you're always recovering. He was able to get a back tip on Peterson one time, and you saw all the, Louisville was in the paint and they're in their position, they're in their stance. Those are all things that are positives. So again, these are things they can play with and see how it works, especially against a really good team like Kansas, and saying, okay, they got great guard play. If we can pressure them or extend them, then we're going to be able to do it to anybody in the ACC.
You brought it up earlier, Coach. Just the fact that they're not running all the sets and putting the whole playbook. Probably just because one, they're still putting stuff in, but also you don't want to have everything put on tape for these exhibitions. How much do you think Pat Kelsey is holding back in these games?
I don't think he's holding back much at all. I think you saw, again, he's a guy who loves concepts. So you saw their spacing, you saw them run their zooms, you saw them ball reversal and making plays. They teach spacing, they teach ideas, they teach IQ, they teach you what's the play the defense tells you to play. We know last year they're going to put in stuff. And this is a normal, you're almost installing some offensive sets and schemes and actions in November and in early December anyway. You're only putting stuff in and you're building on it because you're understanding your personnel, what works. You're not going to run the same thing with if Zugris or Frew is in at the high post than you are with Khalifa. It's going to just be different, and you're going through all that kind of stuff. So, but you saw them. Look, they're running. I think even some of the cuts weren't as crisp as possible. But to think that, Jack, they're holding back or they're saving, yeah, there's stuff they haven't put in. But what you saw, basically, like I said, this is not like an NFL exhibition game where all you're running is power up the middle and waggles, and every team knows, okay, we're just trying to get out of here and identify a few things. No, these are games that teams are trying to win and to learn about their teams and treat this like regular season games. I don't think there's anything they were holding back other than we still haven't put stuff in, and maybe keep a few out of bounds plays in your pocket in a set. But we saw against Bucknell something they ran last year. First play of the game is the shuffle cut, the back screen for off the ball, the reversal by Frew. Here comes the shuffle. Here comes the back screen lob dunk. So, that was something they ran last year as a first play. So, yeah, I don't think they were holding anything back. I think the one thing is they want to get out and transition a lot more than they did last year.
Yeah, and I think that's because, again, like we've talked about, they're playing a lot more guys than they were last year because they were handcuffed with the injuries. But yeah, no, imagine they even had, a really good ATO for McNeely in the Bucknell game that I think gave them the lead for good, 35-34 at that point. But it was like, okay, we've seen them run that for Rain Smith last year, and they're just going to plug and play with McNeely in that front.
And there's so many actions that you can run off that. Like, he feigns the screen, like he's coming to sit the back screen. Then he receives a screen from the guy coming in and blasts off that for a three. But there's slips that you can run off that. He can set a screen and then bounce back. It's all about reads. And again, that's a lot of their out of bounds plays are not like, okay, you have to be robotic. It's all about reads. If the guy's playing on the top side, hey, fake the screen and bounce back. There's all those type of things that they can do. And so, yeah, I don't think they're holding back their actions. They're like, okay, come stop it. Because when you have talent out there, look, it's the matter of, okay, you got to take something away, but you got to live with it. Just like we talked about with the Zooms. There was times when they decided to go under because they didn't want to get back cut. And this is the Bucknell game, and Mikael Brown hits a three. McNeely, the same thing. They're reading the defense. They're going to see how their plays. And again, sometimes you have to be late and wait for your screener's feet to hit the ground to understand what the defender's doing. I think against Kansas, they were a little hurried at times. Their cuts were a little early, and they weren't being as patient as they needed to be, where Bucknell kind of slowed down a little bit for him, and they were able to make, okay, I can see how he's playing me. I can brush off this one and then turn for a back cut or rescreen and so on.
What other adjustments did you see that you think either as a team schematic wise or individuals? Obviously, Mikael Brown at the big game against Bucknell struggled a bit against Kansas. And obviously, I throw the caveat in there. Bucknell, Division I team, not your traditional exhibition, but still 299th in Ken Palm. Not exactly Kansas out there. But what adjustments?
Our first Ken Palm of the year, Jack. There you go.
First of many.
Okay. Oh, I know that.
But just what adjustments did you see from Louisville, either schematically or player wise, between the two games?
Yeah, I didn't see much as far as schematically. I think they were running the same type of things. And yeah, look, the athleticism and length of Kansas is going to change. That you're going to have to be a little sharper in some of the things you do. Early on, you saw that Bucknell was going under all the high ball screens with Mikael Brown. And he hit a couple that way where Kansas was kind of go over the top and really forcing him, not giving him a lot of room. where Bucknell maybe off of that game was saying, okay, go ahead and shoot it where he was able to. So you saw Bucknell kind of taking away the back cuts. And so I think Louisville did a really good job of understanding that and stepping behind the screens and letting them get rescreened so they opened up some of those threes. And then when that happens, yeah, look, it's a different. You didn't have as many back cuts, but you got some open threes. And I think their transition game, getting out and running, was a little better. I think against Kansas, it was kind of like one pass and we're driving it into congestion, or we're taking a shot. That if we search and kind of make an extra pass, I think we're going to get that no matter who you're guarding. I think they were a little more patient in a good way, but still playing with pace against Bucknell. So yeah, I don't think there was much. I just think they were crisper.
Yeah, I will say I think it got better as the game wore on. I think the first 15, 16 minutes or so, I don't think they were playing as fast as they wanted to. And that was when Bucknell was having some success on the offensive end. They're hitting some shots. I really think what changed the game was, as we've talked about at length, was Louisville really extending their pressure and really playing with a lot more energy on the defensive end. Once that happened, I'd say they're too athletic for Bucknell to be frank, to where that I think they made Bucknell play a little bit faster than they wanted to, force them into some tough shots. Louisville did a good job cleaning up the boards, and then once they got running, they kind of never stopped the rest of the game. They went on that big run then the half to kind of break things open, really start the second half out strong as well. Coasted a little bit at the end, but 23-point win, you're never going to complain about that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that probably is going to be addressed to clean up in probably in both games is good defensive teams don't foul, and there's avoidable fouls, whether they're reach-ins, whether they're just being late,
Right.
not keeping people in front at this time of the year, because I think it's more of a matter of you just want to just get out and go, and you're so ramped up to play on offense. It's hard to like downshift at times and get in your stance and make sure that you're keeping guys in front and forcing tough shots. So yeah, some of the avoidable fouls is something that's going to be cleaned up, I'm sure, as they get into, once they get past, South Carolina State, Jackson State, and then they get into the meat of the schedule. I think that's like where you just got to make sure that you're on point. You're not being. That's something I'm going to watch in the next two games, is just seeing, positioning, not reaching as much, not going for steals, trying to get stops, staying in front. You'll know when to poke at the ball and so on, but making sure that they're in front. I think McNeely, just watching him again, I think he's going to be a pretty good defender. He's really good at catching moves, anticipating, understanding. I think there was a breakdown on the film with the coach's corner, just watching him off the ball at times. Like, yeah, I think he understands that conceptually. Obviously, where he comes from, defense is paramount. So that he understands and has a good feel about where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, Tony Bennett's gonna teach someone how to play defense. If there's
You
one
think?
thing we know, but I will add this as well. First of all, not a lot of run up time before you get to that Kentucky game, because that's kind of the big one. Everyone obviously has
Yeah,
circled
what? 2 weeks from yesterday? Is that right? Or 3
Tuesday,
weeks?
November 11th.
So what, we got like 2 weeks, right?
We got less than 2 weeks.
Wow, 13 days.
Yep,
What, 12 days? Man.
yep. But
Wow.
it is still weird how early it is, man. I don't like it. Like I'm already sitting here.
Well, everybody doesn't like it now after they if they had played athletes in action or an NAIA school or Division III and won 113-47, people would feel a lot better. But I
Well,
think
no,
this
no, no.
is.
It's not. It's
I
not
know
at that
you.
type
I'm
of
just
thing.
saying
Yeah.
with people like, yeah, it's just because you're not what you're going to be. It's like a week one or a week two in the NFL. Like you're not where you're going to be by like the Kansas City Chiefs. Like just making an analogy to them.
Right.
They're the best team in football right now. Where 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago when they lose to Jacksonville, everybody's like, well, the run's over. Now no one's going to beat them. That's the way it goes. So, but you know what? I kind of it'd be fun to get out of the gate and have a big game like that. So we'll see.
Oh, I don't disagree with having a big game. Like I love going
Not the
out
Kentucky
opening.
game.
I just like the
Yeah.
big like the first big game. It's very much like yes, it's fun. The season's back, excitement, all this
Right.
stuff. But at the end of the day, the first big game is a litmus test.
And they
Kentucky's
can't.
not a Kentucky. I mean, like if you lose a game, like you lose a game. It's Tennessee last year, week one of the season. It's like
Mhm.
okay, this stinks, but now we know how far we have to go. You lose that game to Kentucky, and it's not okay. We see it. We know how far we have to go. The litmus test, all that stuff. It's no, holy crap, that's our rival, the biggest game of the year in the eyes of the fans, type of deal. You want to be building towards that, not have that be the test. I know Louisville played Kansas, and that helps with that a little bit. Kentucky played Purdue, and Thursday night, as we're recording this, they're about to tip off against Georgetown. But it's still a different feel. I don't like that being right out of the chute. Like, I love a big game out of it. It just shouldn't be your biggest game.
I mean, look, I understand we've talked about it, and I
Yes, I know.
understand
I know we've gone
people.
down the rabbit hole
Yeah, look,
many
I
times.
understand that, and I understand your perspective. I understand all the fans' perspective. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially you want to say, okay, we're at full strength, we're prepared. This is a game that, okay, we've built the momentum to play in this one. So I understand that. I do.
Yeah, that being said, one other thing I wanted to hit on was just
Hmm.
you brought it up with like the fouling and the free throws and stuff. Yeah, there was a point in the Bucknell game that again you hear people complaining like Bucknell's getting all the calls and all that. That Bucknell was 11 for 11 at the free throw line at one point in the first half. Louisville was 2 of 4. The reason for that is not because the ref has something out against Louisville. When Louisville takes 6 2-point shots in a half, the
Hmm.
downside of that means you're not attacking the basket as much, which gives you less opportunities to draw contact and get fouls.
Hmm.
Like it's a pretty simple trade-off there, guys.
Yeah, you're
Like
not
if you're shooting a
absolutely,
lot of
Jack.
jump shots, you're
Yeah,
not going to be drawing a lot of fouls. That's just how it
right.
goes.
And Louisville was fouling in the half
Yes.
court. They were physical and they were grabby and they were reaching, and those were calls. And you know what? That's something to clean up. So it's good to see that they were called, because if they're not, then they know what they can get away with. And I'm sure they're going to be officiating in practices to make sure that, all right, that stuff is stuff we don't want to put teams in the bonus 10 minutes into a half. Like, so that's stuff that has to be cleaned up, and that's good, because being at the game and watching it, yeah, they were the right calls.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, that's how it goes, guys. Sometimes you foul more often than the other team.
Yeah,
Like no
and
one wants to
your
admit
point is
that.
right. Look,
Yeah.
Bucknell was playing in a half court type of setting where they were playing in the mid post. Those guys were driving. They were running different actions. Where Louisville, yeah, was just either out in transition, and their shots were not the type of shots where you're going to get a lot of calls. So yeah, look, that's the way it goes. I don't think it was a bad whistle. I think it was just a situation where Louisville's just something for them to clean up, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I do think, because I do expect them, yes, they're going to shoot, like you said, 30, 43s a game, but I do expect them to attack the basket more, whether it be off the back cuts or the zooms, or we saw Ali Khalifa, especially in the Kansas game, hit a couple backdoor cuts on a few
Mm-hmm.
passes. I do think they're going to be more of a threat to attack the bucket than what we saw in these first two games with Brown and Conwell and all those guys. But yeah, that is something that you're going to have to watch just moving forward on that. But
Oh yeah.
before we get out of here, coach, it's one of my favorite things to do. I get to put you on the spot and make you make some predictions.
Here we go,
Because
Jack.
this is gonna be our last podcast before the season starts Monday night. Louisville, South Carolina State. A couple tune up. Obviously, I'll put it this way: we'll break down those games, but next week's going to be about we're prepping up for Kentucky. That's kind of the thought here. We're previewing. We're looking up ahead to that game, which I know you hate, Coach, because I know you one game at a time and all that stuff. And I agree with you. Like the team itself can't do that, but we're the media business. That's what we're gonna do. But
That's what we do, Jack. I'm all for it. Go ahead.
but because it's the last podcast before the season starts, who's your preseason Final Four and champion, Coach?
All right, let's go. Listen,
I could give you my thoughts and let you collect your own for a
let me
minute or two.
yeah, because you listen. I love when you put me on the spot, and that gives me time to contemplate, because I've been asked that before, and I've talked about some teams, but yeah, let me hear yours,
Yeah.
Jack, and your thoughts, and I'll give mine as I'm jotting mine down as you're talking, but I am listening to you. I'm multitasking.
I will say, I think it's going to be a fascinating year across the sport. It's going to be an absolute blast. There's loads of talent. There's all the old guys, the transfers that we've had the past few years. But I think this is the best freshman class we've had in a number of years as well, probably since pre-COVID, I would argue. So it's going to
Hmm.
be a really, really great spot for college basketball. That being said, to me, there is a clear top two in the sport going into the season, and that's Houston, Purdue, Houston, whichever way you want to argue it. Like
No
Purdue,
argument
yep,
here with that chalk.
yep, them bringing Purdue bringing everyone back.
And
Braden
I
Smith,
don't mean to interrupt
TKR.
you,
No, go for it.
but I always love a team that gets their heart broken the next year. So Houston is always, to me, you can't win a championship till your heart's broken. So that's why I concur with you on that one. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, and that applies to both of them, by the way, because Houston had the great out of bounds play to
It's
get the
true.
buzzer beater against Purdue as
Great
well.
point.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, so I love everything Purdue brings back. I think Oscar Clough is going to be a really good. And they get Daniel Jacobson back to play more of a traditional Matt Painter system of the two bigs because they really struggled rebounding last year. That held them back after Jacobson got hurt. They're going to be fantastic. Houston bringing back Milo Zuzan, Emmanuel Sharp, Tugler is going to step in, be the next guy. They bring in a loaded freshman class as
Mm-hmm.
well. And I think they are going to be just an absolute monster to try to score on. And they got some dudes that can put the ball in the basket as well. So those two teams I have ticketed to Indy. I'm getting a little. I'm getting a little. What's the right word? Because I think there's a next group. There's a wave after that where you could say anyone from like Florida, they bring back their whole front court. I think Michigan is going to be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville, obviously, Kentucky, obviously, St. John's, Arkansas. There's really a next group, Illinois, if they get everything going correctly. There's a next group of like 8, 10, 12 teams that I feel like you could throw any of those in. But I'm gonna say Louisville and Kentucky both get there. And and I think Louisville, with the offensive firepower and everything they've seen, yes, they have to clean some stuff on the defensive end, like we talked about for much of this pod. But I think getting Case and Pryor back, I think he's going to have to play a bigger role than what I initially thought, because of what he can do, rebounding, hedging ball screens, and everything defensively and intangible wise. I think he's going to be someone that they're going to really need to play a big role. Connie Roots as well. I think he's going to have a really, really good breakout year to supplement the backcourt to where I think they can get there because what wins games in March? Guard play. And Louisville has a better collection of a backcourt. Braden Smith's the best point guard, best player probably in the country. Houston, I think, has the best backcourt duo with Uzan and Sharp. I think Louisville has the best collection between Brown, Conwell, Woolley, McNeely, and Kobe Rogers had some really good moments as well. I don't know how much he'll be able to break into that rotation with how good everyone else is ahead of him, but I think Louisville has the best backcourt in the country. And that's what wins games in March. So where I do think they're going to get to Indianapolis and Kentucky going out and I'm trying not to overreact to what they did against Purdue, but to be able to manhandle Purdue, that's a very, even in an exhibition environment, that's a very hard thing to do. So I think Mark Pope did a great job of addressing the weaknesses from what they had last year of you looked at where they struggled. They really struggled on the defensive end, especially against top tier offenses because they just weren't athletic or fast enough,
Mm-hmm.
and or long enough. And I think Mark Pope made a really concerted effort to go into the portal and pull out dudes that were the athletes that can play and match that type of physicality that they saw in the SEC all last year, and really try to break through that glass ceiling of what they saw where they were a really good team a year ago but you couldn't trust them to make a deep run in March because they just didn't have the tools defensively. I think they're going to be a much improved team on that end of the floor. And so Mark Pope, like Pat Kelsey, is a genius on the offensive end. They're going to be able, they're not as good of a shooting team as Louisville, but they're going to be able to scheme up stuff for Cam Williams. Malachi Moreno looked really good against Purdue. So I've got to say both the locals get there and gets a Final Four of Houston, Purdue, Louisville, Kentucky, with Houston beating Purdue in Indy to win the title.
I love it. I love it. I love your analysis. I love your four. I'm not, as you know, not a big prediction guy, but I'm going to go with I love Purdue. I love Matt Painter. He's a friend. I love that team. Houston again. I think all the points you made and getting back to it is something that no one's going to stop that team. They're going to maul you when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Let's go Louisville as team number 3. And then in a Elite 8 game, let's have, even though probably we'll see a 1 versus a 2 somehow, well, let's have St. John's beating Arkansas to get there.
Patino finally gets over the Cal hump there.
Yeah, so
what a story that would be.
Right, so that was the 1-2 in the East region, and we'll have St. John's going with Louisville, Purdue, and Houston. How's that sound?
I love it. I think St. John's is going to be a blast to watch this year as well. They can figure out how. I know. Coach Pitino says, they're going positionless basketball and all that stuff. They figure out the guard play. They have as high of a ceiling as anyone. I love Zuby Ejiofor, man.
Oh man, he's a monster. Yeah.
He's an absolute blast. One last thing before we get out of here that I want to hit on. It's college basketball Louisville adjacent, but if you, I just want to make a note of something that I think we're seeing on the college football side that we've seen basketball wise the last couple years. I think college football schools are going to find out about here this coming coaching carousel. And that's the fact that you look at, like Indiana extended Kurt Signetti with a big contract a couple weeks ago. Matt Rule just got extended on Thursday over at Nebraska. And we're looking at a coaching carousel in college football where LSU's open. You have the governor getting involved. That's weird.
Wild.
That's wild. Penn State's open. Florida's open. Wisconsin might open. Michigan State might open. All these schools. We're going to have
Texas might open.
Yeah, Texas might open. You're going to have all these schools open. And I'm not sure where this coaching carousel will lead on the college football side because we're seeing a trend already start to set in stone that we've seen in college basketball the last few years. What led to Louisville hiring Kenny Payne, who had no prior head coaching experience, or Pat Kelsey, which very wildly 180 degrees of which hire has worked or not. But Pat Kelsey, a lesser-known guy. Mark Pope at Kentucky, a lesser-known guy. Shire at Duke, no head coaching experience. Hubert Davis at Carolina, no head coaching experience. Indiana with Mike Woodson out of the NBA, no college coaching experience. Darren DeVries, 1 year of power conference experience. Arizona hiring Tommy Lloyd, no head coaching experience. The reason we're seeing all that is because we're seeing dudes that would normally be the next man up for high-level, elite-level jobs like a Louisville, a Kentucky, a Duke, a Carolina, be guys like a Nate Oates or a Todd Golden or a Bruce Pearl at non-traditional basketball powers. But instead, we've seen the rise of the SEC in basketballs because they're financially committing themselves to it. Mm-hmm. And when you have the backing financially to match with just not NIL, but like contract stuff as well, and the goodwill built up of you've done things at an Alabama or at Auburn especially that no one thought was possible, it makes it a little less desirable to take a little bit of a pay bump and enter into a pressure cooker that we see at a Kentucky or a Louisville or a Duke, Carolina. And I think that's something that I think college football might learn the hard way as well this year, as we see a Kurt Signetti at Indiana stay put. We'll see if, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt stays put. Matt Rule, obviously, at Nebraska staying put. What happens if the LSUs, the Penn States, the Floridas can't go out and just money whip a coach like they're used to, and honestly, I think expecting to be able to do, is going to be fascinating this offseason.
Well, the question now, when coaches look for jobs, it used to be facilities. Let's look at there's a myriad of factors, how our recruiting will look, where now it's just, okay, I can see coaches taking even less to say, okay, what's my money for roster construction? If you look at Lane Kiffin, everybody's expecting him to leave. If Ole Miss ponies up and gives him what he needs for roster construction, I could see a guy like that staying in college football. So it's the same thing. If you got enough money for roster construction, which is what Signetti has at Indiana, I mean, he's going to stay. Why not? That's, the grass isn't always greener. If you have the ability to get the players you want, then my gosh, that's going to be the norm. And, I know it's been a topic on the Field of 68, just talking about which coaches are almost fed up or ready to hang it up or whatnot. There was discussions with Coach Self and Mark Few and that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I think those guys still love their job. I think I think even a season like this for Kansas could reignite Coach Self, because I think having spent some time with their people, spending time with their radio team and some of their coaches, I think he's having a blast, and I think he's like, okay, I know he's had some health reasons, but I think he's got a roster he really likes, and if you get that, I think some of these coaches will stick around. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think they're going to get back to playing Bill Self basketball this year, like with the athleticism and
defending the way he wants him to defend. Yeah,
because as good of a player Hunter Dickinson was, that they could not defend the way they want to defend with Hunter Dickinson last year.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So that's all we got. I'm sorry. I had to get that off. I think college football is going to learn the same lesson college basketball has learned the last few years this offseason,
Yeah,
which is going
we'll
to be
see.
interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. But the SEC's got money to burn, so we'll see. And
Yeah, exactly. So the Ole Miss has money to burn as well. They have that same contract and the same from the TV networks that Florida and LSU have.
exactly right.
So they also can burn that money. But for Coach Lieberman, I am Jack Grossman. Thanks so much for tuning in. Floyd Streets Fight is part of the Field 68 Podcast Network. We'll catch you next week. Season starts next here in Louisville. I guess I'm in Atlanta, but Louisville, South Carolina State on Monday night. Getting a couple tune-ups before Kentucky game. We're going to have fun talking about that next week. Coach,